Let's take our time to look at the papers for you. I've got quite a number of them this morning. Daily Independence is our first port of call. Let's start with the Star story. Says religious sects laundering money for terrorists. That's according to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. This story actually broke yesterday, and for obvious reasons, it's quite a worrisome development. But then, experts say it's not something new. It's just that Nigeria has not been sincere enough about most of these very salient issues. But let's raise it up a little to headlines above the name masts, right? Top left corner above the name mast says CBN goes tough on forex speculation, hoarding by banks. Is it tougher now than it had been the last few months? Well, the writer here says Senate summons Apex Bank governor over free fall of Naira. Such an embarrassing development. Obaseki seeks reconciliation with Wike ahead Edo Goba primary. Well, they say in politics, nothing is permanent. All right, you don't have permanent friends or enemies. You just only have interests. Because if you follow the election in the state in 2020, you see what makes it interesting that Obaseki is now said to be seeking reconciliation with former Governor Wike of Rivers State, now Minister of the FCT. Okay, here it says Jonathan leads Commonwealth mission to observe Pakistan's elections. You'll find details of that story on page 29 of Daily Independence. Invite Gowon, Obasanjo, Abdusalami, others for imputes against insecurity. Bode George tells Tinubu. Ibadan explosion. Makinde signs order on safe handling of harmful substances. Femi Otedola emerges chairman of FBN Holdings. Well, that was a long time coming too. Adamawa, Supreme Court affirms Governor Fintri's electoral victory, verdict in line with expectation of Nigerians. That's according to the PDP. NIN, FG dispatches evaluation teams to states, distributes enrollment devices. Do they have light at those centers? Because it's embarrassing when you go to some of these centers, they don't even have light to work with. Some of them who even rely on either do not have petrol to power those generators, or the generators altogether are not working, right? These are issues of national embarrassment that should even firm conversations on national television, but it is what it is now. Then at the foot of the Daily Independent, court restrains police from arresting Fubara's chief of staff, as on page 29 of the Daily Independent. We have the next paper here, which is the Business Day newspaper, and Queen will bring us that one.
Okay, on the Business Day newspaper, the big story here is anger, misery rise across Nigeria as Naira free fall worsens. CBN's new FX rules seeing boosting Naira dollar supply. And then we have gas shortage casts doubt on $25 billion Nigeria-Morocco pipeline. FG's debt service to revenue ratio hits 4-year low. I think you find that story on page 32 of Business Day. NNPC pays 140.55 billion naira for Wando branded retail stations jetty and others. FBN Holdings appoints Otedola as chairman. That's on page 29 of the paper. BUA Foods annual profit rises to a 11, if I'm correct, 11.54 billion naira. And I think that's all for the Daily Trust newspaper. So next paper.
We have the next paper here, and turns out it says this day, all right, from above the nameplates, the first headline says Femi Otedola emerges chairman of FBN Holdings, with a writer that reads, firm. He is a strong leader with track record of achievements in business. Okay. Basaki Infracore orders seal 228 billion naira deal for reconstruction of Benin Asaba Expressway, the road that has been an eyesore for years now. I mean, for people traveling from Benin City to Warri, Saple, Ogara, and areas on that route, it's been a nightmare. But we understand there's a new deal in the works now, and we hope it changes the narrative beyond what we see in the media. Kayamo, we are going ahead with fans relocation. That sounds like a tough resolution. Says 500 million naira on tickets for operations not sustainable. Boasts no concession agreement can stop progress in aviation sector. CBN unfolds measures to boost FX supply, mitigate foreign currency speculation. This story has got several headlines, riders, I should say. Sets limits for banks' net open position, removes exchange rates, allowable limit for IMTOs, that's International Money Transfer Operators. Analysts predict $6 billion of inflows to markets, say policies will have salutary impact on economy. Naira falls to 1,530 to the dollar on parallel markets, closes at 1,455 naira to the greenback on I&E, that's import and export window. What's more, records 85% increase in daily turnover. Senate summons Cardoso on state of economy, naira depreciation. What kind of conversation will they be having, Queen, when the CBN helmsman shows up to honor the invite of the Senate? You know, we've seen in this country, even while you have, in particular, someone like Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan as president. I mean, the Senate or even the House of Representatives would invite a chief executive, whether it's the CBN governor, minister, the DJ, or the executive director of an organization. Sometimes they don't come. And some who even get to come, I mean, of course, there are times they don't come at all, don't show up at all. There are times they send their subordinates. There are times they come and the issues even become more controversial than already is the case. All right, so you're wondering, I mean, let's paint a scenario where the CBN governor, Dr. Cardoso, shows up at the Senate, I mean, to honor these invites. What kind of questions are you going to be asking him? Are we just doing it for the gram, as I say? Are we just doing it for the records? We're just doing it so Nigerians have the impression we are working as federal legislators? Or are we doing this from the heart? You know, it's important whether you're doing it from your head or from your heart, because in 2016, interestingly, a good number of Americans had said the reason they voted for Trump was that for them, I mean, based on their assessments, Trump talks or speaks from his heart. Hillary Clinton and Obama speak from their head. I don't know what that means, but I figure that it has to do with the authenticity and the sincerity that come with what you say or what you do, your actions and, I mean, your utterances and so on and so forth. So beyond just inviting him to come and tell us X, Y, Z, in what specific ways will this kind of interface, all right, change the narrative regarding the free fall? I mean, it's embarrassing. I'm not even comfortable reading these stories, especially when you look at where the dollar was a few months ago. Let's not even go back to 2014 or 2015, all right? But we keep our fingers crossed and see what happens, all right? Let's look at the next paper, which is the Guardian newspaper for you.
Okay, so on the Guardian newspaper, we have the big story. CBN frantically tightens news on banks' FX operations speculators. That's on page 6. You have that story there. And then we have this big giant bear, and then the graphics over there. And just underneath it, we have EFCC traces 7 billion naira to religious bodies, alleges faith leaders laundering funds for terrorists. Another story there is monarchs killing. Oni George calls for community policing, impute of ex-service chiefs. 1 in every 10 extremely poor people live in Nigeria, says World Bank. Northern groups tackle Tinubu over withdrawal of 3 nations from ECOWAS. And then we have reps set December 2025 to deliver new constitution 2025. Okay, and then underneath that story, we have women protest in Nasarawa to pay 500,000 naira bail after 12 days in incarceration. Poor preparation, logistics, store, student loan scheme. That's all. I think that's all the stories we have.
No, from the Guardian this morning. Then we have the Daily Trust as well, right? On the Daily Trust, it says CSOs to Tinubu, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso's exit from ECOWAS poses security threats. What must be done to make the Naira rise again? That's Reno Omokri writing in today's Daily Trust newspaper. You may say you don't know him as an economist. Well, that's probably the more reason you should take a look at the details of that article. All right. However, there's a star story on the front page of Daily Trust. It says, amid insecurity, NEF or Hanese CSOs angry. By the way, NEF is Northern Elders Forum. All right. Ohanese CSOs angry over Tinubu's private trip to Paris. Why are they angry? The writer here says he is on top of the situation. That's according to presidency sources. All right. Wike's issue, not novel. PDP intact. Governor Fintri. Religious sects laundering money for terrorists. EFCC. So what are we doing about that? Are we just going to make it a media issue, then everybody goes back to bed? Naira drops to 1,400 to the dollar at official markets. And then two riders accompany that headline. The Senate summons CBN governor over free fall. BDCs close shops. Why? Well, we understand it was 1,530. That was what it closed at the BDCs yesterday. All right, but Queen now will bring us the next paper, which is the Punch newspaper.
Yeah, on the Punch newspaper, we have CBN orders banks to sell excess dollars in 24 hours. Banks may, the writer there says, banks may sell over $5 billion, says official. Cardoso faces Senate Tuesday over Naira fall. Ahead of the nameplates, Tinubu directs AGF Lokobiri to end $1.3 billion oil block dispute. Shareholders excited as Otedola becomes first Bank of Nigeria Holdings chairman. Abductors flogged Ekiti school children. This is coming from the proprietor. And then we have House of David loses multi-million naira Lagos church to fire. And then we have EFCC probing Nigeria air deal. Kiyamo. Ekiti Obas threatened to invoke Yoruba gods against kidnappers. And then we have Makinde gives companies with explosives 72-hour ultimatum.
You see, Queen, there are a couple of concerns here around some of these stories, right? One of them being the issue concerning the EFCC probing Nigeria air deal. You know, in pidgin parlance in Nigeria, there's something called sea finish. You know, that's when you have absolute disregard for someone, for an entity, or for maybe an institution even. Could even be an organization, right? So you can come late to work, you can behave anyhow you like, I mean, whatever pleases you, because there's a sea finish element in play. You can decide to treat the people in your states as a governor because, as you say, you have seen them finish, that sort of thing. So I think that's pretty much the elements that played out with regards to this Nigerian air deal, which the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Kayamo, now says is being probed. Because, I mean, look at how shrouded in secrecy the whole thing was. And now, the man who was behind this whole scheme, talking about Hadi Sirika, who himself was a former senator and served as a minister under former President Buhari, has not been called to questions as to what exactly transpired. We have seen even the MD of one of the most crucial agencies in that ministry come to testify before federal legislators to say, look, this deal was a sham at best. All right. We're saying this to say that we must have a system that is robust, a system that is proactive, not a system where things don't move. All right. You don't see action until maybe when the president has personally been affected, a governor has been affected, one person, maybe one traditional ruler somewhere who is very influential has been affected. We should have a system that runs on autopilot, a system that functions on default. That's the first issue. The second issue is that of Makinde now, the governor for your state, now giving 72 hours, yes, to those who are in the mining sector.
To evacuate those with explosives.
Yes, yes. They are with explosives because they're in the mining sector, that's what we understand. And the governor had even come out about a fortnight ago to say they had gone through the paperwork of many of those companies mining in Oyo State. And a lot of things don't check out, discrepancies, sometimes outright fraud, forgery, falsification, and so on and so forth. Maybe that's a conversation for another time. But for now, what we're saying is we can't continue to have this culture of being reactionary. All right, we have to be, yes, I mean, one of our guests that will be on the show this morning in a few minutes would call it, he calls it knee-jerk approach. All right, so the whole thing would have gone wrong before you react. And even when you're reacting, it's just a stopgap measure you're bringing. So you're not actually proffering definitive solution to the problem. All right. So I thought that was worth stating.
And then after the reaction, what happens?
What happens
just
exactly?
Relax,
right.
Back to status quo until there's another incident.
Then you react again, and then you say we condemn it in totality, which is very disturbing, right? Exactly. So incidentally, our last paper this morning is the Vanguard newspaper for you. Let's see what we've got on the Vanguard. Quite loaded, by the way. All right, but we'll begin from the headlines above the nameplate, right? Ekiti kidnap. Ondo Amoteku deploys 100 personnel, parades 31 suspects. Bandits kidnap 2 sisters in Abuja, demand 30 million naira ransom. EFCC investigating ex-minister Sirika over Nigeria air deal. And the next thing we hear now is he has traveled abroad for medical reasons. His lawyer says he's not disposed to come. He would honor the invitation by the time he begins to recover, by the time his health gets better and things begin to look up for him and things like that. Or he gets arrested, he's taken into custody, EFCC takes him to court, or the DSS as the case may be, and the next thing you know is this. I mean, we now know how it plays out because there's a pattern to it. It's like what Nigerian movies used to be back in the day. So by the time you're seeing the first parts, you know what parts 2 and 3 will be like. Sometimes by the time you watch the first 8 minutes, you know how it's going to end. You know that the lady's mother-in-law will eventually die because she's a witch. She's been the one preventing the lady from getting pregnant and things like that. You can't run the country. You can't even run a small-scale business like that, because what it shows is that we're not biting. What it shows is that we're not serious. And it's interesting how we have people in government, I mean those who do public relations work for the government, those who handle media for the government, continually trying to convince the international community we are serious. You don't need media people to tell the international community you're serious. Your actions, your policies, how you drive them, how you pursue them, the things you prioritize, how you take yourself seriously internally first, will show to the international community you're serious. So if you have a media aide to the president, you have special advisor to the media to the president on media, coming to tell the international community that Nigeria is a serious country, it means there's a problem. The international community must see the things that we pursue, the things that are vital to us as a nation, and say that this must be a serious country, and they will take us seriously. And it will also determine the extent to which they intervene, the extent to which they interfere with our internal issues, right? So that is worth stating, because this is 2024, and we can't continue to do business as usual and expect different outcomes, right? Northwest governors rule out negotiation with terrorists. So what are the alternatives to negotiating with them? CBN clamps down on banks, pegs trade assets in Forex, pegs NOP at 20% of shareholders' funds. Measure expected to boost liquidity. Banks' compliance may lead to Naira appreciation. That's according to analysts. And Naira down to 1,490 Naira to the dollar, appreciates in official markets. EFCC battles religious sects over 13 billion Naira money laundering for terrorists. That's a disturbing story, no doubt about it. But it turns out that's the much we have for you on the papers this morning. We're just going to get straight to our discussions this morning on the program. I'd like to say a big thank you to Queen for being part of the newspaper segments as well this morning. We'll be talking shortly with our guests and two discussions ahead of us. The first is the one that focuses on the Naira free fall and what can be done to fix that. And the second is the agri sector and what policies we have in place. In the meantime, Anthony Momodu has sports update for us.
Good evening, sports fans. Welcome to Sports News Update. Manchester United midfielder Sofiane Amrabat was sent off twice during Morocco's shock AFCON loss to South Africa. Morocco were one of the pre-tournament favourites given their historic run at the 2022 Qatar World Cup. However, South Africa's Evidence Magopa scored a brilliant opening goal in the 57th minute of the game. Morocco's Ashraf Hakimi then had the chance to equalize from the penalty spot, but agonizingly missed at Boha Mokoena ensured the win for South Africa with a 95th minute scoring free kick. However, for former Fiorentina midfielder Amrabat, the night went from bad to worse after he was sent off for a second time, following a reckless challenge he made as the last defender for Morocco. The referee was quick to award a second yellow and a red card to the player, but after a VAR check gave Amrabat some hope and his team believed they could steal an equalizer, the second yellow was upgraded to a straight red, much to the disappointment of the struggling Old Trafford star. South Africa have now set up a tasty quarter-final clash with Cape Verde, who have been in excellent form so far. Former Celta Vigo captain Hugo Malo will stand trial in July for alleged sexual assault of the woman who worked as Espanyol's mascot Periquita in 2019. The defender, who now plays in Brazil with Internacional de Porto Alegre, was previously due to appear in court at Barcelona's court last year, but the case was postponed and now enters its fifth year after the charge was first brought against Malo. The alleged incident took place in April 2019 when Celta Vigo traveled to Catalonia to face Periquitus at the Stagefront Stadium, and footage appears to show the former captain, who was leading the player out onto the pitch, linger in a seemingly tight embrace with the mascot. In her victim statement, the individual, who is referred to as Anna but has upheld her right of anonymity, said that Malo had grabbed her breast after reaching under her mascot suit. Neymar has reportedly demanded a DNA test after claims he is set to father a third child with a third different woman. Report emerged in Brazilian outlet Portal Les Dias that Neymar had an affair with Brazilian model and influencer Amanda Kembele while he was still with his former partner Bruno Biancardi. The report claims Kimberly is now 4 months pregnant, with news of the pregnancy coming as a surprise to Neymar. Despite the surprise, Neymar was said to receive the news with joy and wants to carry out a DNA test as soon as the child is born to confirm it is his. Kimberly hails from Sao Paulo and is best known for appearing on Brazilian dating show Are You the One in 2016, with the model getting to know the Al Hilal star soon after. And talking tennis, a report emerging from Serbia has claimed a fever was the catalyst for Novak Djokovic's shock semi-final loss at the Australian Open, quote attributed to journalist Luka Nikolic on social media state that the 24-time Grand Slam winner was battling a fever the night before he lost to eventual champion Jannik Sinner. Djokovic looked a different player on Rod Laver Arena on Australian Day, easily losing the first 2 sets before forcing Sinner to a fourth. Following Nikolic's comments, Djokovic, many fans felt the result would have been different if the 36-year-old was at his peak fitness. Djokovic, many fans failed to acknowledge the brilliance of Sinner, who didn't offer one breakpoint opportunity to the world number 1 across 4 sets. Post-match, Djokovic himself praised Sinner before stating his on-court performance was subpar. And that's how we call it a wrap on the Sports News Update. I am Anthony Momodu.